In the U.S. Virgin Islands, amidst the beauty of the Caribbean, there's a hidden chapter, and we need your support. You probably heard about Jeffrey Epstein's island. But we're going to uncover his network in the U.S. Virgin Islands that allowed him to set up shop and operate for so many years. We're also going to show you the legacy of corruption that he left behind. Just because Epstein's dead does not mean his enterprise died with him. We're also going to share the true stories from the victims left behind searching for justice, so buckle up and watch till the end. Here we go. The U.S. Virgin Islands is a U.S. territory with a population of a little over 100,000, but it actually only has about 50,000 locals split between three main islands. It's a story of justice delayed, and for some, justice denied. We have the proof this is by intent, not mere inefficiencies. It's all about the money, it would seem. Here are some important facts to know. The U.S. Virgin Islands is a U.S. territory. Its citizens are born American citizens, but as long as a U.S. Virgin Islander lives on the island, they cannot vote. Would you believe that the U.S. Virgin Islands is the only place in the United States that does not honor our sacred Constitution? The U.S. Constitution, while a foundational document, does not automatically extend all its rights to territories like the U.S. Virgin Islands. The puzzling Sixth Amendment, the right to a speedy trial in the USD. At the heart of the American legal system lies the Sixth Amendment, guaranteeing the right to a speedy trial. Yet, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, this seemingly straightforward provision takes on a murky character. While the U.S. mainland sees the timely progress of court proceedings as a fundamental right, residents of the USD often encounter a different reality. Cases can languish for years, even decades, leading to public outcry and concerns over the practical application of this fundamental right. But why the discrepancy? One might argue that the USV, with its unique historical and political background, has not had the streamlined legal infrastructure to handle cases efficiently. Others point to the territory's limited resources and funding for the judicial system. But beneath these surface explanations lies a deeper, more systemic issue: the nuanced interpretation of constitutional rights in U.S. territories. This was determined by a series of Supreme Court decisions, collectively referred to as the insular cases. Only fundamental rights, according to these cases, apply to territories unless explicitly stated by Congress. Take the Seventh Amendment, for instance. On the U.S. mainland, if you're embroiled in a civil dispute, you're entitled to a jury trial. However, in territories, this right doesn't necessarily hold true. The Fifth Amendment, too, isn't immune to this territorial discrepancy. Its protections, like the right against self-incrimination or the mandate for grand jury indictment in certain crimes, can manifest differently in places like the U.S. Virgin Islands. To top things off, the U.S. Virgin Islands seems to have little, if any, federal oversight. Can you believe there are only 3 U.S. Virgin Islands criminal court judges who are appointed by the governor? This alone is unorthodox in the United States. This journey to the truth begins at the heart of this paradox: the courts. But this isn't just any court system. It's one plagued by delays that stretched back to the 90s and in some cases even longer. While everyone is pointing the fingers at each other, the fact is the U.S. Virgin Islands knew, allowed, and facilitated Jeffrey Epstein's island activities. Inside these courtrooms, justice doesn't move at the speed of law, it moves at the pace of a snail. Here are some of the victims' real stories. My settlement was stolen, and yet the guilty attorneys have evaded justice for nearly a decade. I have 201 docket filings and not a single hearing to address them in nearly 10 years. They tried to starve me out by suing me multiple times vexatiously and pro se. It cost them $125 to file a lawsuit. It cost me $24,000 to defend against them. Times that by 3. I'm still waiting for justice. It's a wound that never heals and gets deeper as time goes by. I had my grievance tied to my civil trial even after the Office of Disciplinary Counsel investigator handed in their findings. They found in my favor and recommended disbarment. They then tied my grievance to my civil case, ignoring the findings, only to find out that cases are going back to the early 90s. These crooks are still walking the streets and in business. There are hardly any attorneys in this little area that represent personal injury or malpractice, and they all seem to know each other, creating huge conflicts of interest. My attorney refused to sue all the responsible parties, limiting my recovery. My attorney commingled my settlement funds and stole them. Now I am on disability, trying to live off of less than $1,000 a month, yet they still walk free. As the years passed, families and friends united, seeking answers. Candlelight vigils, marches, petitions, and podcasting became their cries for action. Politicians promised reform, but for many, it remained elusive. Inside the courtroom, lawyers argued over technicalities, while outside, time ticked away for the grieving. Every day, it feels like justice is slipping through our fingers, like sand on these shores. Amidst the despair, we're hoping a dedicated legal advocate emerged. In the face of adversity, these families found strength in each other. We won't give up until our loved ones receive the justice they deserve. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, where the beauty of the islands contrasts with the pain of unresolved cases, these stories remind us that justice delayed is not just justice denied. Justice delayed, the untold stories. In the U.S. Virgin Islands, there are 800 to 1,000 backlog criminal cases and thousands in civil court backlogs, some stretching back to the 90s. These include Epstein's US Virgin Islands victims. Even the Office of Disciplinary Counsel has a backlog of nearly 200 cases stretching back to the 90s and only one part-time investigator to handle the caseload. This is clearly by design. The corrupt are using these loopholes to delay justice and act with impunity, allowing them to tally up large numbers of victims. Victims cry for a mainland investigation. Is the U.S. Virgin Islands big enough to govern itself? How do we clean up the corruption? How do we get justice for the thousands of victims of delayed justice in the U.S. Virgin Islands? Press like and subscribe if you support the victims of Epstein's corrupt empire in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Please share this to gain exposure to this shocking reality. We also ask for a boycott on the U.S. Virgin Island tourism until an investigation is done by an independent party. The islands might be a paradise for vacationers, but for those entangled in the legal system, they offer a unique vantage point into the complexities and discrepancies of constitutional rights. In U.S. territories. This was created by a victim of the corruption in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Your support means a lot. Thank you.
This has been Digital Voices with Bo Tiffany, exploring deep stories from real-life guests with real-life experiences, providing insight to our listeners with every story. Stay up to date on future podcasts by bookmarking digitalvoiceswithbotiffany.podbean.com and follow Bo on social media by searching Digital Voices with Bo Tiffany. Have an idea for a future story? Send your idea to acrmadison@gmail.com. Until next time, grab life by the horns and keep inspiring others.